Hello, and welcome to Sarah's Baked Goods. Today we're going to be making fruit tarts. We're going to be using blackberries, blueberries, strawberries, and a bit of oranges. The way you make fruit tarts is very simple. You cook the shell by itself, nothing at all. You do need some baking beans for this so that it doesn't just become a disc. And then you fill it with some custard and top it with some beautiful fruits. So, let's get into it. Okay, we're going to start with the custard itself. The reason why we're going to start with this is it needs to fully cool down, and you have to boil this to get it going. I pre-measured the butter. We're going to add milk, cream, and butter with our flavoring, in this case vanilla, half of the sugar, and then we're going to let that steep and just get to a simmer so that it gets all that flavor in. After the milk, we'll add our cream. You can just do this with milk, but if you want to get that amazing, savory, rich flavor, you're going to need to use some cream and butter. Add a little bit of flavoring. This is the point where you can use vanilla beans. You would cut them open, scrape the seeds in, and then put the skins in. And at the very end of this, we're going to sift this to make sure that it's nice and smooth. And that's when you get that skin out of there. So you can do that as well. Other ideas that you can maybe use if you're making like an apple fruit tart or something like that, you can maybe use a cinnamon stick in there or just ground cinnamon. There's a whole bunch of ideas you can do with this. Then we're going to add our sugar. Half of it though. The other half goes with the eggs. Okay. I'm going to set this off to the side, just put it on low just to get it to a simmer. Next we're going to set up our eggs. So here's our 5 yolks. Add our other half of the sugar. Give that a little mix. And then we're going to add some cornstarch. We're going to fully mix this together and wait for our cream to get to a simmer. So I'm all set up. Make sure you're like this so that you're not rushing or anything. Make sure this is nicely mixed. You don't want giant clumps of cornstarch in there. Then you're just going to slowly stir this as the butter melts. And once it's fully melted, you can turn up the heat and get ready to pour this in. The way you're going to do this, so that you understand before you get rolling, when this starts to boil, you're going to pour a tiny bit in here, temper it. If you just pour this directly in here, you're going to scramble your eggs and it's going to be awful. So you're going to mix a tiny bit of the hot liquid in to get it to room temperature or a little bit past room temperature. That way when it goes from that temperature to hot, it doesn't just curdle and become gross. My butter is now melted. So I'm just going to turn this up and wait till it starts to boil. The longer this steeps, the more flavor you're going to get out of it. Just remember that. So, if you're very slow with this, that's not a problem. It actually makes it taste even better. However, you obviously don't want to be too slow or it's not really worth it for when you're making a bunch of dozens for your bakery. Once it starts to bubble up just like this, starts to steam, you're going to, just going to make it safer, pour a tiny bit in there. Stir that about. Make sure that you're fully mixed. And then you're going to pour it directly in. Get all of it as quick as possible because you need to start stirring. Keep stirring, keep stirring. You'll start to see that it's thickening up. Whoa! If you do anything like this, you're gonna have to just relax. Don't panic. As long as it's not on the element, you're good. You'll have to clean it afterwards. You need to get this boiling again so that all that starch taste goes away. And that it's fully thickened. We're going to take it off the heat now that it's fully thickened. And it's boiled enough that all the starch taste should be out of there. And we're going to just pour it into our sift. So we have our sift ready. We're going to pour all of this in here. It's going to look really runny because it's hot, but as soon as it cools down, it's going to thicken up a lot. And then you're just going to scrape it through. You're going to notice that there's a few chunky bits, and that's just part of the egg that doesn't fully dissolve in. The connecting bit between the yolk and the whites always stays with the yolks, and it doesn't form into a custard. So you got to make sure that you scrape that out. Make sure all of it's through, and then scrape the bottom. There we are. Move this off to the side. We're now going to cover it, but touching it. We need to cover it all the way to the bottom, or what will happen is all this condensation and steam coming off of it will water it down and will form a skin. And what you'll notice is you'll have a skin with water on top of it. And it's not good because that skin won't ever be able to be mixed back into your curd. So that bit's just waste if you ever do it. And then the water, if that ever gets mixed in, your curd could be very liquidy and not be able to be piped as easily. So we're gonna let this cool at room temperature. Then we're gonna put it into our fridge. If you put this in the fridge right now, all it's going to do is bring your fridge temperature up and make everything in your fridge go bad. So once this gets to room temperature, then we can put it into our fridge and then it will cool down properly. Since this has to be a pre-baked shell, you can do this whenever. You could have done this first if you wanted to. Doesn't really matter. I prefer to do the custard first because it needs to cool down the longest. These shells will easily be cooled by the time you need them for your custard. So I prefer to go this way, but it's up to you. If you want to make a bunch of these beforehand, then you don't have to worry about them, or vice versa. You can make a whole bunch of custard beforehand and then just the next day make a whole bunch of shells. It's all up to how you want to plan out your day. This is the new size of dough, so it's going to be a lot easier for me to get the correct amount. Almost there. Make sure you're trying to get that 10. As soon as you can get that 10, you know you have the right thickness. And any excess can get you that next 2. That should be about right. So you want to get about 10 or 9. Either one should be okay. If you start to get 8 or less, you're going to start to have some troubles. If you are having troubles with them sticking, simply grab your offset spatula, get underneath them. The top will be a little bit more flour than the bottom, and that side should be easy to flip over without sticking. I'm noticing this one's a little bit thin. Quick fix. Add a bit of dough in the thin spots, and it should get better. You won't normally have this problem if you flour properly, unlike me, who wanted to rush it. This is a perfect example of why you don't want to rush this. Because I rushed it, I have to add dough to certain ones, and I'm losing the shape because they're sticking too badly. Now with this extra, we're going to roll out for our last 2 pieces. Two more easy pieces, and there we are. So instead of filling these, we're just going to place them in. Very gentle. Stretch the dough upwards just a tad bit so that it's slightly over the top, because remember, this is going to shrink and you want this to be level. So if you just put it slightly over, it's going to be level at the end. Now we're just going to take muffin, put it in just like that, and add baking beans. I use ceramic baking beans, but you can just use regular baking beans. And if you don't have anything at all, but you have rice, you can use rice. It doesn't work as nicely, but it will get the job done. Oh. You're gonna wanna fill this as much as you can, because the more you fill it, the less it's going to shrink and turn into like a disc. So we're going to just slowly go through these. I'm going to get them all in nicely first before I put the baking beans in. And you see how this one's not even a circle anymore? That doesn't mean I can't stretch it and change the shape a bit to get what I want. Just like that. It's slightly over the top and it's perfectly fine. So when you do mess up on a few like that, if you do end up having them stick, which hopefully you've floured enough and that doesn't happen because they're a lot easier when they don't, you're just going to have to work a bit harder to make sure that they get to the shape you want before you put in everything. So unfortunately I didn't have enough baking beans, or the ceramic ones, so I did have to use rice. There is baking beans in every single one, but I just topped it with rice. Rice doesn't work the best, so I didn't really want to use that, but I have no choice since I can't find any more baking beans and I don't have any beans on me. We're just gonna bake this about 16 minutes. Now that they're done, all I'm gonna do is pull these out once this is cooled down. Pour this back into my little bag over here so that I can reuse this later on. If you do this with your rice, you can't really use it again. You can if you really are desperate, but I recommend just keeping it off to the side so that you have it as your baking beans until you get baking beans. Once this cools down and our custard cools down fully, all that's left is decorating, and then we'll be done for today. Now that everything is cooled down, I got all the rice and baking beans out. I'm gonna keep all this stuff because anytime I need to make these shells, I'm gonna have to use this amount of stuff anyways, and that way I don't have to reuse a bunch of these. So first we're going to pipe in our curd, about 2/3 full. You don't need to make this look perfect because you're going to cover the whole thing with berries, and in fact you want to cover everything with berries because any spot that's not covered will form a skin and not be pleasant to eat. Once you've filled them all, you're going to make your own design, whatever fruits you want. I recommend getting berries and sweeter fruits, things that aren't like apples that have a hard skin, because it complements the curd a lot more, and there's so much vibrant colors with berries that you can make a beautiful design with all types of berries. So this is how we're going to design ours. Grab 3 candied oranges. Line them up on one side. Grab your strawberries. Depending on the size, you'll see how much you need. But we're gonna put it in, stack them up. Like so. Then on this one side, we're gonna add a few blueberries and 1 blackberry. If they're huge blackberries like this one is, I might have to change it to cut in half. And that's the design we're gonna go for, but this isn't complete yet. With the simple syrup from your orange, you're gonna brush everything, all the berries. That'll give it a nice shine. It will keep everything from drying out and preserve it a lot longer. Normally what people do to make it preserve forever and make it last a lot longer is making a simple syrup but with gelatin. And what that does is it makes a case around the whole thing, and you can have that in the fridge for a very long time before anything goes bad. I don't like using it because that means people who want halal or things like that can't really eat it. Also, I want this to be the freshest as possible, so having just simple syrup will keep it fresh for as long as I want it to be fresh. I don't like how the version with the gelatin in it makes it last so long that you could have it in your fridge for like a week. I don't want to be selling week-old tarts. I want to be selling maximum 2-3 day old tarts. Maximum. I don't even feel good about selling 3 day old. Maybe just 1 day or 2 days. And that's perfect for just using your simple syrup brush, because you're going to get that nice shine everywhere and your nice design. And that's all it is. Simple, just like that. Now let's finish the rest. The only reason I brushed that last one right away was because I was showing you. You don't have to brush each one at a time. You can make all of them the same design and then just brush all of them at the end. It's not a big deal for anything like that. So let's see how it tastes, how it worked out. It's a good taste, but these oranges, they need to be changed. I have the skin on right now, and it's not really feasible to have skin off if you're going to do it yourself. So we're going to have to test some brands and see what slices of oranges taste the best, and then try them. The only other thing would be maybe taking them out and putting zucchini or something like that. But fruit tarts can change with the season, so it's not a big deal. I'll just have to change that for next time. But damn, they're good. A lot of custard, tastes really good. The berry side is perfect. They really complement each other. The crust itself isn't too thick and breaks away easily. Nice and flaky. Perfect for this. All around, successful. Just need to change that oranges. That's about it. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. I even have my own website. Thank you, and have a nice day.